Hey there everyone, this is KT, back again with more Pokemon Colosseum. This episode is what I'd like to call a training arc. This is a lot of stuff I did in between the previous part and the one I'm about to record for continuing the playthrough. Because I did a lot of grinding and more tedious stuff that I don't think would be as interesting to talk over live. So this is more of an abridged, here's what we got up to. So first you can see I nicknamed our crew. This is more important than any EV training, any move decisions. You gotta have nicknames. Kuro, if you didn't know, is black in Japanese. I didn't have a great idea of what to call our Umbreon, so Kuro will do. Here we have the evolution for Jumpluff. The evolution looks a little weird in Colosseum. I quite like Jumpluff's idle animation there, how he hops in place. I also quite like his animation when he has to recover from getting a hit, because you can see he can float in the air. He sort of glides back to his position. I went with Yuka, which is a character from the Toho series. I had another name in mind, but it didn't fit, and I wanted to talk about the save file editor, because I was able to just import names, and it led to a glitched name. So I don't know what would happen if I'd trade that to a cartridge game, but you can get glitched characters. Here's Remoraid's Purification. Since Remoraid started at such a low level, he didn't evolve right away. Now, I spent a long time thinking about a name for him, and I ended up going with Taiho, which means cannon in Japanese. And I used a 0 instead of an O. That's really funny. I didn't even notice that when I was nicknaming him. I've also purified and will be bringing along Fraligator. Now, he's not going to be used in the playthrough, but he has an important role in that he can hold an item, and if I give him the experience share, he will be siphoning experience from the rest of the team. So he's actually quite overleveled at this point, but being able to prevent the rest of the team from getting too high level, I think is very useful. As well as he acts as like a buffer for EVs I don't want to get on certain Pokemon, so Fraligator is very useful. Even if he's not going to be contributing damage or being used in major fights. So we went all the way back to Phenac. There's two important things to do here. This area, it's called the gym something or other. I don't remember what this area was called. You're able to enter it from pretty early on, and I skipped over it on our first encounter because there's not a whole lot to do here. You need a full party of 6 to challenge the boss of this gym. Now, it's not like a gym for a badge or anything, but this guy sitting right here, he won't challenge you until you have 6, but you need to beat his 3 trainers before that, and they're all really easy. None of the fights here are very difficult, so unfortunately it's not very interesting. I didn't think doing this live would be that fun, and I didn't know at the time that I could come back. I thought that this unlocked later. It's nice to get some initial EVs for our Octillary. Oh, I suppose he was still a Remoraid during this footage. But now he's level 25, so as soon as we're done this fight, he's going to evolve. I have to say, I'm very impressed with Octillary now. He was pretty rough being a Remoraid, but once he's evolved and he can actually start doing damage, he's been really, really fun to have on the team. Here he's trying to learn Octozuka, which is a signature move of his. I removed Lock On, since I don't think there was a scenario where I would use Lock On. And here I learned if you actually decline the next challenge, you get kicked out and you have to talk to the gym leader again to get the challenge started. But you don't start from the first fight. It's just like an intermission. You can stop and heal if you'd like. Yeah, here I'm struggling to figure out why can't I continue, but you just have to talk to the gym leader. Nice, another trainer down. As I said, these guys are all pretty easy. I think there's one more trainer. That might have been the last guy. It's a little weird they're not allowed to be up here with the normal people. They're all stuck downstairs. They just get summoned when there's a trainer fight. It's a little bit weird. And of course, two rock ground types versus a grass and a water. These guys stand no chance. You see, I've been switch training a little bit as a way to get more EVs across the team, as well as to sort of nerf experience. If you spread more experience around more Pokemon, you'll get less per Pokemon. So that's why you'll see I do quite a bit of switch training. And now that we've proven ourselves, we can battle this guy. Here he gives us a white herb, and I do wonder if the staff who worked on this game were aware that a white herb is a consumable, that I won't get to use it more than once. So a white herb's not exactly a nice item. It's not very useful to us. Here we can explore the downstairs, which is a very cool environment. I don't even think I went here on my first playthrough, so I'll be sure to check back later in the playthrough to see if anything new gets added. Though I don't think anything will. I think this is just to show you where these guys train. So at this point, I recognized I needed a full team of 6, so I very quickly ran back to get a full party. This guy doesn't seem to care if you have shadows, though. So this section is sped up quite a lot. This fight takes a very, very long time. He has a full team of 6, and the strategy he employs is a Sandvale double team setup. I think he has 3 Sandvale Pokemon on his team, and they all love to set up Sand as well as spam double team. So it does take quite a while. So one strategy I ended up employing, I didn't realize at the time that I taught Feint Attack that I was going to have a accuracy fight later on, but I started to use the X special glitch on Umbreon, so that way Feint Attack would get boosted damage, and of course Feint Attack won't miss, so that was our way to get out of this. It's definitely not a hard fight, it just is a bit annoying. It's not very interesting, and him having a full team of 6 just makes it take forever. Yeah, the footage is so sped up, I'm not going to try and explain it after the fact. It's very easy to use, the X item glitch. And of course you can use it for other stuff too, but using it for X items seems to be the best use. And there you have it. Very weird camera angle. That was kind of cool. So for beating that, we get TM27, which is Return. We don't really have a strong physical attacker, but one thing in this game I think is underappreciated is that Umbreon and Espeon both have maximum happiness with Wes. So you can immediately equip Return and get the most damage you could out of it. Now I know Umbreon being a special attacker, that's not very useful, but just having access to the move is good. Now we have the other part of the game that I skipped over, which is the Phoenix Stadium, or Phoenix Colosseum. I forget what it's called. But this is a Colosseum very similar to the one we had to do in Pyrite, except this one is optional. The Pokemon here are generally high level, but they're usually not fully evolved as a way to kind of counterbalance it. But they're all just exceptionally easy. This section took a long time, and we get decent rewards for doing it, but all of the fights are really, really simple. You see it as Azurill at level 40, and a Sentret at level 40. So it feels like an unlucky crit would be the deciding factor rather than some skill problem. So for these fights, we're just going to skip over them to show that my team did beat all of them, because we have to do 4 tournaments, 4 tournaments of 4 trainers. The plus, though, is that we get a nice chunk of money for every time that we win, as well as we get a TM. And one of those TMs, I say, is critical for our team. We absolutely need one of these TMs. At this part, I realized that you're able to skip that little cutscene animation where it announces that you're at the semifinals or at round 1. So we'll start skipping those. All of the trainers only have 2 Pokemon except for the final round. That one has a whopping 3. He's got 3 not fully evolved Pokemon that are weirdly high level. I didn't check any wikis or anything, so I don't really know the movesets, but I didn't see anything very weird. They all seem to be using very weak moves. Maybe some of these have an interesting strategy. I kind of doubt it. So that gives us TM 18, which is Sunny Day or Rain Dance. I don't remember which one. Now we have to fight a fierce Igglybuff at level 40. This is going to be tough. A Snorunt, who actually would threaten my team because a crit ice move could obliterate Jumpluff. Level 42 Trico. So weird. I understand like what the point is. They don't want to just throw top tiers at you right away, but it's the same problem I have in the Emerald battle facilities, all the Emerald Battle Frontier. The low levels just suck. You're fighting not fully evolved Pokemon with weird movesets instead of just like getting to the part that's challenging. Now I think it's justified in this game. I think it makes sense to have this be an optional thing for the trainer to do. It would be nice if you could just set it to a hard mode once you've beaten it to rack up more money. I don't think you can repeat the TMs. I think the TMs it's handed out are all one-time deals. I believe this was the final trainer for round 3, which this is the TM we need for our team. I still went ahead and did round 4 just because it's nice to have the option, and it's a TM we might end up using. So here we get TM 19, which is Giga Drain. Very, very useful for our Jumpluff. Yeah, just replace over Mega Drain because this is a flat upgrade. I don't remember if getting PP ups or PP maxes is that viable in Colosseum, so we might be in a bit of trouble having to reset more often because we only have 5 uses of that. Maybe we'll just burn through ethers more often. One very nice trait I didn't know about using an Octillary is that he has a lot of variety for his moves. Of course, Bubble Beam is only 65 base power, but it's stab, and we get Psy Beam, which is also 65 power and is a psychic move, and we get Aurora Beam, which is also 65 power and is not stab, but having the coverage of psychic and ice is really, really nice. Octozooka sort of fulfills the same role as Bubble Beam. I think it can lower the enemy's accuracy or lower their speed when it hits, but it has lower accuracy, so I don't think it's very useful. As soon as I get a better move, I'm probably going to replace it. Whereas Bubble Beam is just too good. And that's Phoenix Stadium. Yeah, we get 9k for doing that, and we get TM22, which is Solar Beam. Not that useful to us right now. We could set up an insane sun strategy to boost Solar Beam. Now we're back at Pyrite, and the first thing you can do once you've beaten Mirror B is go to the jail. Here, this cutscene plays again. And now there's a key on the table, so we can free the prisoners. I don't know if this has any effect on the game later on. I know the immediate effect is that we get a TM on the bed here. But trying to free the other two, the guys that kidnapped Rui, they don't seem to leave. So I don't understand whether that's intended or maybe they say something that implies they don't want to leave. The good news, though, we get a Thief, TM46 Thief, which is kind of nice. I don't know how many enemy Pokemon are going to have hold items, but by the late game, they definitely will. Maybe that could be good for Jumpluff if he learns it. If Jumpluff learns Thief, being able to, like, immediately handicap the enemy, immediately take away their item, that might be cool. Have to consider it. It is nice. It is a nice move to just hand the player. So this part, I was a little bit confused why those two weren't leaving the room. So I tried exiting and coming back to see if I could figure out why they just stand there. They just talk to you instead of leaving. So here's a trainer in the Pyrite building. I actually completely skipped by. I didn't even realize we were supposed to fight her at this point. I know we need to fight her to get to that elevator later in the game, but we can fight her right now. Nothing too interesting to report. She's a pretty easy trainer, on par with everything else you encounter here. It is a little weird that these trainers cannot be rematched. Though there's one exception to that. I'll be showing off in a minute. Yeah, we get a taste of our first Giga Drain. Yeah, for those that remember, this trainer had the Quillfish initially, and we're allowed to rematch him, which is very weird because the other trainers that also had shadows were not allowed to rematch yet. There's going to be a fight later on that once that fight happens, all these trainers will be happy to rematch us, but at this point, none of them do, except this guy. Here you see I swapped in for Alligator as a way to reduce experience. I ended up using the save file editor, so really this wasn't too much of an issue, but you guys will see that at the start of the next episode. I also have no idea why I used Bubble Beam on the Goldeen. Maybe I meant to select Linoon? I quite like the animations on Octillary. Whoever the animators were for Pokemon Stadium 2, they definitely did a good job. So after him, I went and explored everywhere I could in the... Yeah, I tried to fight him again, but it didn't work. I explored the cavern system, and not a single trainer wanted to fight me. However, there's this little Easter egg. I don't know how many people are aware of this. Once you've beaten Mirror B, this little imposter guy shows up. And I didn't actually fight him. I didn't know what level he was going to be, and I was a little afraid I was going to walk into a fight that's like high 40s. So we're actually going to save him, and I'm going to fight him next episode. But this is available to us. You can go back and fight him. So now we're on to the EV training section. I decided to start with Octillary and fight this guy a ton of times holding the Macho Brace. The Pokemon he leads with are both special attack EVs, so while it was tedious and very slow, consistently getting special attack on our Octillary is very important, very good. You see, for a little bit I tried swapping in Shadows to purify them alongside training Octillary, but it ended up being too much of a chore. I ended up not sticking to that plan. And it didn't take long for Octillary to start one-shotting everyone. So bringing in Fraligator as a way to reduce experience. This is a method you could use for EV training in Colosseum. I mostly wanted to prove if this was viable, and I've come to the conclusion it is for certain stats. You'll see throughout how I raised the other two. Raising speed and defense are basically off the table, and HP is really annoying to EV Trainer at this point in the game. I know it'll get better later, but I did want to see, as soon as we can purify, how can we EV train our crew? And it turns out HP you can train. There's a good trainer for attack. There's a couple of trainers for special attack. And special defense is actually pretty easy because there's a Dust Tox. So if you fight that Dust Tox with a Macho Brace, you'll get a whopping 6, which is really good. So this trainer, I did sort of a split EV training. I was actually quite proud of this one because I think this was a good setup. So you see he starts with a Numel, which is 1 special attack, and then he throws out Azurel, which is 1 HP. We lead with Fraligator, and we lead with Octillary. You see Octillary has gained a lot of levels between those two fights. So we waste a turn with Fraligator, and we take out the Numel. So that means the special attack EV immediately gets applied to these two Pokemon. And now he throws out an Igglybuff, which is also an HP EV. So Azurill gets his turn. I don't know what he's planning to do. Massive damage on Octillary, it seems. So now we swap Octillary out for Umbreon. So now Umbreon is staring down 2 HP Pokemon, but he's holding the Macho Brace, so that's actually 4 HP. As well as Octillary gets the HP. Fraligator just destroys these two because there's a huge level gap. And they're also like baby Pokemon. They aren't they don't really have good stats to work with. And then he ends with a Swablu. And Swablu has special defense, which is very good for Umbreon. Very important that we get special defense. It's just defense and speed. I feel like at this point in the game, there's no good way to train. So this trainer, I did a similar split experience for Octillary and Umbreon. She leads with 2 special attack Pokemon and has the Dust Tox in the back. So as long as we take out the other 2 with Octillary, the special attack will go to Octillary. Then we switch him out, and Umbreon gets all of the special defense without getting any of the special attack, which is what we want. We want to avoid getting EVs we don't benefit from. So that nets us 6 special defense for Umbreon. Very good. And minimal experience, which is also helpful. As I said, speed is a bit annoying to do, so I decided to just go and spend some money for the Carbos and raise the speed for our Jumpluff. It may be excessive because he's already so fast, but there's nothing else I really want to put his EVs into besides special attack and speed. So I ended up doing the same fight here for special attack on Jump Left. Much of a threat for us. We're not doing it for a challenge. This is clearly just for experience. So I have this last section here where I just show off my stats. As I said, I did use the save file editor, and I did wipe EVs that I thought were worthless. Like, there's not much point in having speed on Umbreon and not much point on having attack on Octillary. So these are the EVs that we're going into the next part with. I'll hope you guys join me then. I hope that this wasn't too confusing editing around like this, but I thought this would be way worse to do live, so I hope this is a good compromise.